Good. It's 9 o'clock, and I think we should use the time as efficient as possible. Um, Welcome to this topical webinar on enhancing tailings management in Indonesia. My name is Mark Mistry from the Nickel Institute, and I'm going to moderate the session today. Before we go into the technical details, first of all, Claude, can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and
Very
clear. I
good.
can see your presentation.
Very good. So the protocols for a virtual session, what we decided to do, and this is what we are doing with all topical webinars, is that the participants are muted to avoid background noise. There's at the bottom of the Zoom screen the possibility to ask questions in the Q&A session. So during the presentations, if you have questions, please put them into the Q&A section, and we will address those questions during the Q&A session at the end of the webinar. So no questions after the presentations. We are first going to run through the presentations and then have all questions answered afterwards. Um, The webinar is recorded. That's very important, and made together with the presentations and a summary report available to the participants upon request. So that is going to happen within the coming weeks. And as said, you're going to receive a link to the recording as well as to the summary report. And the last point I would like to make is that translation is available into Indonesia Bahasa. So you will see at the bottom of your Zoom screen a little planet, a little globe. When you click on it, you can choose the language in which you would like to participate in this webinar. Good. Antitrust reminder is as important as the housekeeping rules. The Nickel Institute, we do not present forecasts or comments on nickel market prices, supply demand. We are committed to full compliance with the competition or antitrust laws in all jurisdictions where our members operate. On our website, you will find guidelines where the areas of legal risks are shown, and all participants in our activities share responsibility for adherence to these guidelines. Now, first, to explain the context, why are we organizing these topical webinars? What we see on a global scale is that sustainability requirements are playing an increasing role. They are formulated by markets, by regulators, by customers, by investors. And given that in Indonesia we are facing a very sensitive environment, these requirements are especially relevant for Indonesian nickel producers and related stakeholders within the value chain or surrounding those nickel producers. And these topical webinars the aim is to inform on what needs to be done and how Nickel Institute and Cobalt Institute are supporting companies in their efforts. So this is right now I think the fifth webinar that we are organizing in this series since 2024. And the topic today is, as I mentioned in the introduction, enhancing tailings management in Indonesia. So we want to provide an overview and facilitate the sharing of knowledge, experience, and guidance. We want to support companies in their approaches to find safe and sustainable tailings management technologies, but also give you an insight into the regulatory framework when it comes to tailings management in the Indonesian nickel sector. And one point that is not mentioned here is that we also want to give you an insight into the work that is done by Indonesian nickel producers in this respect. Very briefly, I don't want to overlap too much with the speakers. So the background is, as you know, Indonesia today is producing more than 60% of the global nickel mine production. And tailings occur close to the mines in the processing of these materials, like, for example, in the leaching processes or in the smelting processes that follow the mining and ore preparation. And we expect with the growing supply of nickel by Indonesia, we also expect that the amount of tailings is going to increase significantly. And therefore, the safe storage of tailings in tailings management facilities to protect communities, workers, the environment is a priority. And there are challenges that we are facing in Indonesia, like, for example, seasonal rainfall, seismic activities, topography, that play a role when it comes to choosing the right tailings management technology. And therefore, many of the technological solutions that are found need to be adjusted. There are many challenges that Indonesia and the nickel industry in Indonesia is facing, like, for example, the water content in these tailings. So it's very difficult to get them into a solid state. Seasonal rainfalls, we are right now hitting into the rain season in Indonesia. Impurities that occur together with the tailings, the fact that these tailings are concentrated around the processing units, simply the high amounts that we meet in Indonesia. And as I already mentioned, the seismic activities. I was last week in Indonesia and witnessed an earthquake. So it is something that is relevant, as well as the topographic situation. We all know that Indonesia is a wonderful country with more than 17,000 islands. So these are all challenges that tailings management in Indonesia is facing. So our speakers today are mentioned here. As you can see, we are going to kick off with Pak Amsor from the Ministry for Environment, who's going to provide us an overview on the regulatory framework. We have afterwards from the Institute Technology in Bandung, Irwan Iskandar, who's going to talk about the situation on the ground. Tony Gultom from FINI, representing the Forum Industry Nickel Indonesia, to talk about some practical insights. And then Emma Gagan from ICMM, the International Council on Mining and Metals, to give us some insights into the global industry guidance. We also will have a quick intervention from the Global Battery Alliance that will talk about their work when it comes to tailings management. And I think with this, I would like to first hand over to our president, Veronique Stöckers, who's going to talk about or introduce the Nickel Institute very briefly. And then also Susanna McLaren from the Cobalt Institute. As moderator, I'm also the one who has to ensure that we are not running late. And therefore, I would like to ask the speakers to be strict when it comes to the timing. So we allocated a certain time slot to all the speakers. And as said, I would appreciate if both Veronica and Susanna are going to respect the timing that I defined for them. So before, yes, just trying to get your slides up and running.
Thank you very much, Mark, and welcome everyone to this webinar. As we said, this is part of a series of different webinars that the Nickel Institute is organizing, and it's great to see so many people on the line. So very quick introduction to the Nickel Institute. I think that the Nickel Institute is probably already very well known by most of the people here on the call. So the next slide, Mark. So who are we? We are the Global Association of Primary Nickel Producers, and we have different expertise in the Nickel Institute at global level, and which is really unique in the world. There's no other organization that has this expertise, and that's also recognized by members, by the stakeholders and everything. As nickel is very complex, it comes with a lot of challenges, and a lot of those challenges are managed and mitigated through the Nickel Institute. Next slide. So our mission is to advocate for the responsible supply of nickel and the sustainable development of the nickel industry through the different divisions that we have. We are the only ones at global level that promote nickel in its applications, that promote the end users of nickel. We are about the only ones as well at global level that deal with the science with respect to nickel. And there's a lot coming our way. We do have a lot of information already on nickel, but questions continue to be raised, especially on classification, for instance, where studies need to be done and where the Nickel Institute steps in. And we also deal with regulation, making sure that regulation is science-based, making sure to follow the regulation and to support and inform our members about regulatory requirements. So we do have our members. Next slide, please. So membership does enhance the reputation of the companies. It enhances the reputation of the companies towards the regulators and the customers, because they realize that through the Nickel Institute, the members are abreast of the latest developments and that they know what to do to manage and to manage the challenges that come with nickel. But it also enhances the reputation of our members towards investors, because they can reassure investors that risks associated with their operations and their investments are mitigated and managed through the Nickel Institute. And one of the things that the Nickel Institute is doing as well is providing platforms such as this one here for companies, for stakeholders internationally to come together and to discuss topics that are relevant for nickel, that are very topical, that are very high on the agenda of a number of stakeholders. And thanks to the network that we have, we are able to bring people together around the room to really provide thought leadership, to discuss the topics and to identify a way forward. So next slide. I think I'm coming to the end. So we are a truly global association. We are incorporated in Canada, and we have offices and representation globally, including in China, in Tokyo, Singapore, and the United States and Europe. With this, I'll hand it over to Susanna, who can introduce the Cobalt Institute, and I wish you all a very successful and fruitful discussions and webinar. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. And I'm joining you from Oxford today, but I know for many of you, it's your evening. So very delighted to see so many friends from Indonesia joining this. I would ask the organizers, Nickel Institute, if you could allow me to share my slides. Okay, I think that's my last slide. So can we go back to the beginning? That's great. So I'm Susanna McLaren, and I am the head of responsible sourcing and sustainability at the Cobalt Institute. And we are absolutely delighted to be collaborating yet again with the Nickel Institute on a topic of great importance to us. If you'll allow me to say a few words about the Cobalt Institute for those who aren't familiar with us or have interacted with us slightly and want to know a little bit more. On to the next slide, please. We are the Global Industry Association for Cobalt. We represent the whole cobalt value chain. So we have over 65 members, and we have a strong representation from the producer level, but we also represent recyclers, traders, refiners, and end users of cobalt, and those who are associated with the cobalt industry. So if you're interested in understanding our membership better, you can see those on our website. And we are essentially the voice of industry. We exist to promote the safe, sustainable, and responsible production and use of cobalt in all its forms and uses, but also across the whole life cycle. For many, we're also a knowledge center for regulators, governments, industry, NGOs, academia, the media, and often even the general public. On to the next slide, please. And we have 4 areas of expertise, if you like, centers of expertise. I think we've been around for 40 years, and our longest standing program is the Global Chemicals Management Program. We collaborate very closely on many matters with the Nickel Institute in relation to this. We're also dealing with a very important topic that is existential for the cobalt industry around the occupational exposure limits, and have a well-resourced and dedicated team leading on that, as well as our government affairs team is very well engaged with the EU, the US, and other jurisdictions on topics of important matters, but also especially on the occupational exposure limit these days as it comes into the fore. The 2 areas I lead are the responsible sourcing and sustainability centers of expertise, and we really exist to support our members to navigate some of the real pressing challenges and questions and the emerging regulation in this area, particularly around sustainability standards and around due diligence legislation, forced labor import bans, and other matters in that domain. On sustainability, we develop data around life cycle analysis, decarbonization, and circularity that really helps promote cobalt as a material of choice, but also equips our members as well as wider stakeholders. All our data is publicly available. It really equips you to engage with policymakers, with your customers, and with others who may be asking for more information or shining a light on your practices. Next slide, please. So as Indonesia is now the standalone second largest cobalt producer, this has become more and more a priority country for the Cobalt Institute and our membership. We receive increasing questions around cobalt produced in Indonesia as a byproduct of nickel. And to give you a sense of the scale, I mean, Indonesian cobalt now makes up 12% of global cobalt supply. I've been working for the Cobalt Institute for 5 years, and 5 years ago it was very much under the radar, but now it's really come into the limelight. And in 2024, Indonesia contributed 30% of global cobalt supply growth, and that was up from 23% in 2023. So that gives you a sense, and I'm sure many of you are living and breathing that in Indonesia, where you're seeing the rapid rise of nickel, and of course, to go with that, you have a rapid rise of cobalt as its byproduct. But also, what we see is it's still a nascent sector, the cobalt sector in Indonesia, and certainly when I've been in Indonesia, when my colleagues have visited, there is an appetite to understand how the cobalt market works better and what are some of the challenges and concerns coming from the wider public, the international community, and these are all areas that we are able to support on. Next slide, please. And part of the way we support is through the resources that we make available on our website. These are just a selection. We also produce a cobalt market report. That's an annual report, and it's not paywalled, so it's free to the public. It's typically launched in May with quarterly updates, also available on our website. And especially for the past 2 to 3 years, it has had an increasing focus on Indonesia. So if you're looking to understand the market better and looking for statistics, I certainly signpost you to that. Another important piece of work that we had produced to coincide with COP29 a couple of years back was a just cobalt decarbonization pathway, and that includes marginal abatement cost curves as they relate to Indonesia. So final slide. So, in conclusion, first of all, I'd like to welcome you to our Cobalt Congress, which will take place in Madrid this year. This is an annual event. Last year we held it in Singapore and we had a panel on Indonesia, and we were also able to welcome some senior Indonesian officials. You can find more details on registration there. And finally, to say, we've been in this space. Cobalt has been in the limelight for a long time, particularly due to its presence in some complex jurisdictions like the Democratic Republic of the Congo. And therefore, we have built a real level of maturity and understanding on ESG issues. And we extend our offer to support Indonesian stakeholders as they grapple and navigate these challenges. I'll now hand over to Mark, who has come back on screen, which means I'm out of time, but I'm delighted to be here. Thank you again, and look forward to the rest of the conversation. Have a good day or evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Susanna and Veronique, for these introductions. And what we are going to do right now is that we are going to run through the presentations, as I said. So we will have 4 presentations in block. If you have questions, then please put them into the Q&A section. And we are going to start off with Pak Amsor from who's the director of hazardous and non-hazardous waste management at the Ministry for Environment. We are very pleased to have you here today. And I will put your slides on the screen in a minute. So, Pak Amsor.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Mark. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Maybe I will do presentation in Bahasa. So please the interpreter to translate our presentation. Oke, terima kasih. Kami mencoba untuk menyampaikan tentang potensi dan prospek dari pemanfaatan tailing di Indonesia. Walaupun mungkin slide presentasi kami terbatas, kami akan mencoba menyampaikan hal itu sesingkat mungkin sehubungan dengan waktu yang terbatas juga. Next slide. Iya, di Indonesia berdasarkan database kami yang kita sebut sebagai SPID, Sistem Pelaporan dan Evaluasi Digital, menunjukkan bahwa volume untuk tailing di Indonesia itu mencapai 122 juta ton per tahun. Ini ada tailing yang bersumber dari silikat mineral dan juga ditambah dengan tailing dari nikel, proses nikel. Totally ada 122 juta ton per tahun. Di Indonesia, tailing diklasifikasikan sebagai limbah B3, di samping berpotensi untuk menghasilkan acid main drainage, juga volumenya yang sangat besar yang membutuhkan lokasi yang sangat luas untuk pengelolaannya. Pemanfaatan hanya sebagian kecil saja bisa dilakukan, namun untuk limbah tailing ini pasti akan pilihannya kepada landfilling maupun pembangunan tailing storage facility atau tailing dam. Tailing dihasilkan di Indonesia ada dari praktek-praktek untuk pengolahan tembaga, nikel, kemudian ada dari mineral lainnya seperti boksit dan seterusnya. Jumlahnya sangat besar dan pilihan untuk pengelolaan limbah limbah tailing ini hanya dari penempatan di satu lokasi yang kita sebut landfill maupun tailing dam. Di Indonesia, tailing untuk dari proses nikel dilarang untuk dibuang ke laut. Next slide. Kami akan mencoba menyampaikan sedikit tentang peraturan pengelolaan tailing di Indonesia. Bahwa di dalam undang-undang tentang perlindungan dan pengelolaan lingkungan hidup telah dibuka upaya untuk pengolahan tailing sebagai atau pengelolaan tailing dengan cara penimbunan. Lebih jauh lagi, di dalam Peraturan Pemerintah Nomor 22 Tahun 2021 tentang pengelolaan limbah B3 telah diatur dengan jelas bagaimana limbah tailing itu harus dilakukan pengelolaan. Yaitu pendekatannya hanya dua. Pertama adalah penimbunan dan kedua potensi untuk dilakukan pemanfaatan. Untuk penimbunan di Indonesia pilihannya bisa dengan landfill. Kita bagi menjadi landfill kelas 1, kelas 2, dan kelas 3. Landfill kelas 1 di Indonesia itu dengan menggunakan double liner HDPE. Landfill kelas 2 menggunakan atau lapisan untuk single liner. Kemudian landfill kelas 3, liner HDPE bisa diganti dengan lapisan clay. Atau juga dibuka peluang penimbunan itu dengan cara back to backfilling ke dalam area tambang jika itu memungkinkan. Atau yang kedua, jika tidak ada area di dalam tambang, maka bisa dibuatkan tailing storage facility atau tailing dam. Seperti itu. Untuk pemanfaatan, beberapa industri ekstraksi mineral di Indonesia sebagian bisa melakukan pemanfaatan. Tailing dicampur dengan tailing dapat menjadi satu agregat beton, pembangunan jalan maupun pembangunan fasilitas konstruksi. Yang sering dilakukan di Indonesia adalah seperti itu. Dewasa ini sedang ada satu penelitian bahwa tailing dari nikel itu bisa dilakukan proses kembali untuk mengambil logam-logam di luar nikel, kobalt, mangan, dan tentunya Fe. Nah, ini yang sedang coba dikembangkan adalah bagaimana mengekstraksi Fe, kandungan unsur Fe menjadi FeSO2, FeSO3. Itu yang sedang dikembangkan dan ini menjadi potensi yang sangat besar untuk bisa mengekstraksi Fe-nya. Next slide. Ya, untuk tailing-tailing dari kegiatan proses biji tembaga maupun emas, maka 90% akan menghasilkan wet tailing yang pengelolaannya saat ini bisa dengan tailing dam dan ada sebagian beberapa kita lakukan dumping. Namun untuk yang tailing dari nikel, sekali lagi tidak bisa untuk dilakukan dumping sehubungan dengan aspek-aspek teknis, diantaranya adalah ukuran butir yang sangat halus, menyebabkan tailing tersebut tidak atau dilarang untuk dibuang ke laut. Nah, perkembangan selanjutnya bahwa tailing dari nikel dengan cara ICPA di proses akhir dilakukan proses drying atau menjadi tailing, menjadi dry tail. Dry tail ini lebih banyak dikelola dengan cara menggunakan landfill atau membuat satu fasilitas tailing dam seperti itu. Tadi pembicara sebelumnya sudah menyampaikan perlu diperhitungkan tentang curah hujan, kemudian aspek-aspek teknis lainnya. Hal itu sudah kami lakukan juga sehingga bisa tidak membahayakan untuk manusia dan lingkungan. Next slide. Sebagaimana kita ketahui untuk nikel production process dari suatu tambang terbuka biasanya jenisnya bisa atau diproses dengan cara crushing, grinding, flotation, tapi lebih banyak di Indonesia itu sekarang berkembang ke arah ICPAL dan pyrometalurgi. Apabila biji mineral laterit dari nikel tersebut diproses dengan cara pyrometalurgi, maka akan menghasilkan slag. Slag tersebut di Indonesia dikategorikan sebagai non-hazardous waste. Sehingga prosesnya di dalam pengolahan tersebut tidak memerlukan izin atau permit dari pemerintah. Cukup perusahaan tersebut melakukan satu inovasi pengelolaan, apakah itu dimanfaatkan atau dilakukan satu proses penimbunan di wilayahnya. Yang kedua adalah dengan proses ICPAL yang hidrometalurgi, maka tailingnya kita kategorikan sebagai limbah B3 dan harus diperlakukan dengan tata cara pengelolaan limbah B3 yang sangat ketat. Sekali lagi, bahwa yang untuk tailing dari ICPAL di Indonesia itu adalah dilarang untuk dibuang ke laut. Ya. Di dalam proses untuk pengelolaan tailing, khususnya dari proses hidrometalurgi, maka setiap usaha harus memiliki persetujuan teknis dan kelayakan operasi dari pemerintah. Next slide. Ya, terus saja. Lanjut. Next slide. Oke, next slide. Saya skip saja. Ini teorinya saja. Lanjut ke utilization. Lanjut. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Ya, untuk pilihan tailing waste management seperti sudah umum di dunia, maka kebanyakan mengambil posisi untuk final disposal maupun membangun satu tailing storage facility. Nah, namun di Indonesia ada beberapa kombinasi selain mengambil posisi final disposal dengan cara landfill, dikombinasi dengan memanfaatkan area tambang sebagai area untuk backfilling. Ya. Lanjut, next slide. Di Indonesia mendorong untuk pemanfaatan tailing sebesar-besarnya. Namun, accessibility yang seringkali tidak mudah ke lokasi pertambangan menyebabkan utilisasi menjadi terbatas. Utilisasi dari pemanfaatan tailing ini lebih banyak dilakukan di area tambang, belum bisa secara besar-besaran dimanfaatkan oleh industri, sehingga pemanfaatannya masih sedikit. Next slide. Ini contoh saja bagaimana pemanfaatan tailing di negara lain ya. Tapi kami akan mencoba next slide di pemanfaatan tailing di Indonesia. Next slide. Ini di Amerika. Next slide. Ya, ini pemanfaatan tailing di Indonesia. Kita memiliki regulasi untuk pemanfaatannya melalui Peraturan Menteri Nomor 6 Tahun 2021. Ya. Bahwa tailing dapat dimanfaatkan sebagai substitusi suatu material, bahan baku, apabila mengandung lebih besar dari 50% oxide, itu bisa dengan persyaratannya dari itu, kemudian ada market, dan harus comply terhadap Standar Nasional Indonesia (SNI) terkait dengan produk yang dihasilkan. Ya, pemanfaatan ini sudah besar dan saat ini perhitungan data kami menunjukkan angka 3 miliar per ton tailing. Namun lagi-lagi kami sampaikan di sini bahwa aksesibilitas untuk mendapatkan tailing di satu lokasi tambang yang terpencil menyebabkan pemanfaatannya belum begitu besar. Sedangkan kalau misalkan pilihan tailing untuk waste disposal, kita banyak mempersyaratkan ketentuan tentang aspek geotechnical, struktur analisis, karena Indonesia pertama merupakan daerah yang rawan gempa, curah hujan sangat tinggi, sehingga membutuhkan suatu struktur landfill maupun tailing dam yang betul-betul diperhitungkan dengan akurat. Seperti itu. Lanjut. Next slide. Ini adalah contoh-contoh pemanfaatan tailing di Indonesia. Bagaimana satu tailing dari kegiatan operasi tambang emas dan copper di Indonesia menghasilkan banyak brick untuk pembangunan infrastruktur di wilayah tambangnya, maupun tailing dapat digunakan sebagai road base atau maupun jalan-jalan di area tambang. Ya. Ada juga satu tambang di Indonesia yang memanfaatkan tailing ini untuk sebagai face fill di dalam underground mining-nya, ya, sehingga menjadi landasan kendaraan untuk bisa bergerak dengan baik di posisi underground mining. Itu mungkin yang bisa kami sampaikan terkait dengan bagaimana tailing di Indonesia itu dilakukan. Prinsipnya, secara regulasi kita membuka proses-proses pemanfaatan dan pilihan-pilihan untuk melakukan penimbunan. Terima kasih atas perhatiannya dan kesempatannya kami kembalikan kepada moderator. Terima kasih. Thank you, Pak. Terima kasih.
We can't hear you, Mark, I think.
Mark, you're still mute.
Once again, thank you, Pak Amsor, for this very nice insight into the views of the Indonesian government when it comes to tailings management. I think it was very nice to see that there are a number of similarities that we can see with legislation globally. Many of the principles that you mentioned, like the precautionary principle, like waste minimization, like also the proximity principle, are things that we can see also in other jurisdictions like the European Union. And I think the conclusion of your presentation with looking into how these slags can be used, reused, or materials can be recovered is actually a very interesting approach that we also can see being promoted in other jurisdictions. Now, I noted that we have a little challenge. We have, for the time being, we are missing Professor Irwan Iskander. What I would suggest, we are trying to contact him. If you don't mind, Tony, then we would directly go over to your presentation, hoping that Irwan Iskander is going to join us in the coming minutes. And we are going to ask him then to actually share his slides. Tony, would you prefer sharing your slides from your screen?
Yeah, yes.
And maybe one last comment from my side to the participants. As said, there's the possibility to add questions and answers at the bottom. So please do so, as we will use those questions then in the Q&A session that is going to follow at the very end. So Tony, the word is yours.
Thanks, Mark. Can you see my slide presentation?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Mark, Nickel Institute, and also Amsor for the opening as well, the Phoenix, and also from Cobalt Institute. Just to share with you, the audience about the practical insight on the experience in tailing management and lesson learned in Indonesia. Just introduce of the Indonesian Nickel Industry Forums. It is a legal entity established in 2020. Serve the forum for communication and consults between the members and the stakeholders, and as well as communicate with the governments. So that's many of the integrated mining smelters, refinery, or independent smelter refinery as a member of the Nickel Industry Forum. Okay, as explained before, it's already mentioned that Indonesia is one of the top nickel mine producer by 2024 or the previous years, which is produced 59% of the global mines productions. And then we looking this in Indonesia, which is the nickel mine is a nickel laterite. It's a bit different with the nickel sulfide in other countries. Indonesia has produced nickel laterite, which is have the two products from the mine. It is saprolites and limonites. We'll explain later on in the next slides. Let's look the waste from the two products, nickel saprolite and nickel limonites. For nickel limonites, that's used for HPAL, and then the byproduct is the nickel slurry. As Amso already mentions about definitions of the tailings under the Indonesian Regulation number 22/2021, and it is also as hazardous waste. Just put it on stress on the tailings slurry, nickel tailings and slag nickel. What is difference? The nickel tailing is we're talking about the typical fine grains and often in the slurry form. It is explained in under international definition as well. While the slag nickel is more grains, coarse, right? And the way that we're managing the slag and the tailing is a big difference. Let's look on the characteristic of the nickel tailing and the slag. First is that when we look the processings, the nickel tailings slurries come from the HPAL, while the nickel slags come from the pyrometallurgical smelting, like pig iron, nickel pig iron or ferronickel. And the physical state is a fine particle mixed with the processed water, while the nickel slag is a solid, coarse, and rock lines material. And the nickel slurry is just high, have water contents, right? And while the nickel slag can be negligible. In Indonesia, there's no deep sea tailing nickel placement, like Pak Amsor mentioned before, that all nickel tailings are managed onshore. Just bit to understand, and when talking the ore coming, the top ones, the limonites coming on the top area, of the ore materials that is used for the hydrometallurgy, and the bottom one, the saprolites, used for the pyrometallurgy. Okay, that's if you see the most of the documents talking about the productions, if you see that increasing the production in nickel productions, but I would mention here there's two separate difference. Most the increase of the production is on the saprolites portion, which is the within the 2.8 million ton per year of the production, mostly coming from the rotary kilns electric furnace, which produce nickel pig irons, while that 500,000 tons is produced from the high pressure acid list, or it's about 20% of the ore processing is goes to HPAL. If looking on the slag and the tailings on the right graph, just put the estimation of the products for the LKEF or pyrometallurgy is about 80%, 85% of the ore becomes slag, while for the tailing it's about 95% of the products become the tailings. The current tailings is about 86 million tons of the tailings. Our AMSOR mentioned about 122 million tons. That's including, I think, with silicate mineral. While from nickels is less than that one, but that's coming from five HPAL in operation. In the coming years, there'll be increase of HPAL operations in 2026, 2027. They be operating some of the HPAL which is currently under constructions, and be slightly increased by the end of 2029. So that's the number of tailing will be developed by in the next 2 years. Yeah, so then that's something that the companies have to think how to manage the tailings production of its company. So if I enhancing the tailings management in Indonesia compared between the regulation and also the international standards, yes, both of Indonesia as well as the international standards put it concerns of the how the location of the tailings will be placing, right? The impact and the climates. Yes, the climates is as the main concern as well. And for the Indonesia is the seismic also is also that's as part of the company have to manage before decide which location and the placement they have to decide it. So I like to present the commonly applied best practice between the nickel and slag. The first two tailing is the tailing type. I would say put it into two: the tailing slurry and the tailing slurry with filter cakes. Right, it means the dry form. The first one is in the slurry form. So currently used for using the tailing storage facility or the dam tailing, and they put it the not only the solid material, but also the water contents, right? And that's the considerations here is the water quality and seepage become important to be controlled, and higher environmental impact as well as the social sensitivity. The tailings slurry in the dry form is more less water-related risk, even though there's still water content in the solid portion. But the operation also is very high cost, even though that's be better managed. The last two line is the nickel slag and processing after the direct put it into the placement or need to be aggregated. So that's since we focus on the tailings, so then I don't talk too much on the slag. So good. That's the next. The next two slides I would use to make better understands of how the companies in Indonesia can manage. I just use the two samples. Maybe later on, Pak Irwan Iskandar can explain more on the technical point. But the two things on this I like to present is one is about how we manage the area on the high rainfall and wet tailing condition. There's two types before decides on the location is that how to manage the water in the context, right? So the company have to build some operational drainage, either temporary during the constructions, and then build sub drains, vertical drains, finger drains, or kind of that all the drainage to ensure the water content in the tailing can be drained from the dry stack and flowing into the leachate collection pond and treat it before release it to the environment. And to reduce the water because of the mostly in the nickel mine area is a high rainfall. There's need to have the perimeter drainage to reduce water coming into the dry stack area. This is a sample of in the one of the company in the Obi Islands. They put it two type of the water system. First in water within the dry stack, and the second waters outside to avoid not coming into the dry stack. So this is the drainage perimeters. See that's of the dry stack in the center. So all water from outside will flowing into the drainage perimeters and flow into the sediment pond downstream before release it to the environment. While inside the dry stack facilities, like I explained before, there will be sub drains, the main drains in the center, and also the finger drain. The blue line, a lot of finger drain to ensure that the water's going down to the sub drains, and also the vertical drain. On the cross sections, if you see there's this sub drains, sub-drains, and this one is the finger drain. The finger drain, and then will be flowing, joined together downstream with the sub-drains. And there's also the vertical drains to collect water within the layer of the tailing. So with this system, that's to ensure that the water contents is really managed and stable when layering the tailing. To reduce also with potential seismics or earthquakes, this project builds more on the buttress. This buttress is to prevent potential failure of the tailings, the tailing storage. So it's kind of like a compartment. It's kind of the compartment. So that's reduced. If this picture showing this have a buttress in every area. So if it's a failures coming, that failures will be downs, and will be there's another protection of this buttress. Okay. Just to see on the right side the table of the characteristic of the tailings, which is that's the slurry and the dry stack, the dry trail. The physical form is similar between both, except on the dry stack is only the moisture content left in the dry stack. And the chemical composition is the same. The mineral material, classified as mineral material. All the TCLP, the total contents, and the toxicity as well as the subchronic is the same. There's no difference. The result between the slurry and also in the dry form. So at this point, that's the difference is only the physical form. Okay. On the dry stacks, there's two types of how to put it the tailing from the filter press. In the OB, they use the conveyor belts from the conveyor belts, and then continues with dump truck, which is far away from the conveyor, then use a dump truck, and then using a dozer. If it close to the conveyor, it's just directly use excavator and dozer. It's also possible to combine both depending of the location. Okay, so that's how the best practice of the company to manage the dry stack facilities, considering the rainfall as well as the seismic. This is some of the challenges for the company who will build a new SPAL. They have to consider how to manage the slag and where's the location. It's a good part if it integrated mining and refinery, then they can use the ex-pit area as a placement instead of using the new area compared to the standalone refinery without have the mining area. So some of the FPAL currently use the ex-pit as the placement using dry stack facilities techniques. In the long run, slag for the tailing can be used for other purpose. Amsor already mentioned before. Yes, some mineral metals can be utilized to be a byproduct for others refinery or smelters. And but for the rest, still needs more study how to utilize this tailing. I think from my perspective, we have to put the tailing as a byproduct, not as a waste. So then the use of we will have more positive to think how to use the tailing as much as possible, like the slag nickel, which is currently a lot of company already use either for the bricks, paving blocks, or concretes, or buildings. A lot of things that already used. So more now just finished, I think, from Ministry of Mineral and Energy on the soil amaranth for the X mine for the reclamation. So I think that's some of the information I could share with you all. I return to Mark. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Tony, for this very nice overview and these practical insights. I think that what we can take with us from your presentation is, first of all, it's a significant amount of tailings that we are dealing with. Secondly, it's important to understand that there are different tailings that we are talking about. And I think another key point that I noted down is that it is also worthwhile looking into the tailings and their compositions to find the most suitable solution to safely dispose these tailings off, or to find recovery options. And I think Emma is going to talk later on about the global dimension. So there's a lot that can be learned and that the Indonesian industry is taking into account. But still, given the regional relevance, the circumstances that we meet in Indonesia, it is important to adjust those global standards to the regional setting that we meet in Indonesia. So, Tony, many thanks. And I'm happy that we managed to get Professor Irwan Iskandar to join us. He's calling in, he's making himself available from a trip to Saudi Arabia. So I'm very pleased that you made yourself available. Professor Irwan Iskandar is Associate Professor at the Bandung Technology Institute, where he holds, well, he is from his background, a mining engineer. I'm myself a mining engineer. I'm always happy to meet mining engineers around the globe. And he has also a PhD in environmental geology, a lot of background when it comes to hydrogeology. We also learned right now from the presentations that we heard from the Ministry for Environment, from FINI, how important water is in tailings management. So, Irwan, we are looking forward to your presentation, and I would appreciate if you can share your slides.
Thank you, Mark. Can you hear my voice clearly?
Yes, we can hear you and we can see you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. Sorry for there is something wrong with the schedule actually. Previously I joined as an attendee. The link is different maybe. Okay, I will continue about this webinar discussion about tailing issue, especially about the placement and strategic potential of especially nickel tailing Indonesia. As Pak Deputy Pak Director Pak Amsor, the Director of Hazardous Waste and Waste Ministry of Environment Indonesia mentioned about more than 100 million tons of tailing, and mostly also coming from the mining, and also of course nickel mine and nickel processing industries. Yeah, I think we must combine this one. There are tailing from the perspective of global industry standard of tailing management, but also tailing perspective in Indonesian regulation. Indonesian regulation follows the Indonesian Ministry of Environment and Forestry under the government regulation PP 22 2021 and Permen LHK number 6 2021. Yeah, this is tailing mineral processing from gold, from nickel, from bauxite and galena and others. And as Pak Tony mentioned previously, from the nickel, especially from the RKIF or pyrometallurgy process, we produce slag nickel, and now the slag nickel is non-hazardous waste or non-LB3. But the other from gold mine and HPAL from nickel is classified as hazardous waste. And also, if we see the regulation or common practice regulation in tailing management, the global industry standard on tailing management have some guidance to follow and must be integrated with Indonesian regulation. And also in global industrial standard tailing management must also consider the situation in Indonesia. I think we know that Indonesia is tropical seasons and mostly is island or small island, not a continent. The land is very limited from the coast to the mountain is not so far. The space is very important. So, and also the earthquake is a problem in Indonesia. So we must consider about that. The topographic, as Mark mentioned, mostly hilly area with small valley and mountainous area. So it's the challenge to tailing placement in Indonesia. As Indonesian regulation under the government regulation number 22, yeah, and the implementation and the technical guidance from the Ministry of Environmental and Forestry number 6 2021 about tailing as categorized as hazard waste, the code EB416 as Pak Amsor mentioned previously. And also this is those are this challenge of tailing. Of course, Indonesia, as Cobalt Institute mentioned, now we produce as a second producer of cobalt. Of course, caused by follow the HPAL process, we can produce nickel both with cobalt also, and also marine protection. Until now, and there is no deep sea tailing placement or dumping to the sea for the nickel tail. This is very fine material with the light density. And the number 3 is very important in Indonesia, limited on land space. Indonesia is not a continent country. We are archipelago island, small islands, and land is very important for us. Of course, we are large country, but mostly is marine or sea. And island and small island, especially in the eastern part of Indonesia, the space is very important. And also the climate issue. As you know, we face the climate situation, big challenge about the heavy rainfall, extreme rainfall now occurred more rapid than previously. And also safety concern, especially about the earthquake, seismic activity in Indonesia is very important to concern. And number 6, also about the mineral conservation. I think this is the opportunity for the tailing about the mineral conservation. Pak Amsor and Pak Tony mentioned about the other minerals or other element can be extracted from the tailing itself. But the problem is, of course, not just only technology, but if the technology is feasible, but also the economic value. In this term, maybe tailing must be give the incentive economic benefit for someone or some company produce mineral or elements from the tailing. For example, reduction of tax and others. This is the incentive to make the tailings can be used, especially to extract other mineral as a mineral conservation. And of course, in environmental perspective, this is very good because we can reduce the number of tailing and reduce the risk, of course. And also the regulation and permit. As you know, previously Indonesia is the raw material nickel producer. We just export the ore nickel to other countries, and now start from 2019, I think we start to make many change because we must make smelting or nickel processing in Indonesia itself, especially for HPAL. The technology is now used. Previously is limonite in nickel laterite is not an ore, but now limonite is very is important material, is an ore. So in this case, the problem is in mining area, in open pit area or open cast mining area. We cannot close the mine opening, because now all the materials are ore, saprolite and also the limonite, and it's very limited number of soil to or material to close the opening of the mine. And of course, this is an opportunity because we can put the tailing to the mine out area as the big field and also the scope. But the problem is most of the nickel industry company is under different permit in Ministry of Industrial, mostly IUI, Izin Usaha Industri, and now most of the mine companies is under the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources. Sometimes it's different entities, and we need to adjust administration and permit under the both ministry, maybe three parties: Ministry of Energy, Mineral Resources, Ministry of Industries, Ministry of Environment. And also the challenge, social and environmental challenge. One of the biggest issue, maybe you know about the chromium hexavalence, not only in tailing, but also in mine opening. So we must close the mine opening to avoid the chromium hexavalent, because my master thesis about the chromium hexavalent in nickel mine company in southern part of Sulawesi Island. Mostly the hexavalent chromium is occurred when there is a water ponding above the chromium, but this is not coming from the chromite, but this is the impurities from the olivine. Yeah. So that's also the challenge. And also, as Pak Amsor mentioned about the forms of tailing placement from the dam tailing and landfill, if the tailing is solid, backfill to the mine out area, and for dumping to the sea, there is no permit and there is no placement dumping to the sea. And injection of water, if any, if the tailing is liquid, but for the mining, the tailing is not liquid. This is slurry or in solid. And number 6, we must push the utilization of tailing materials, not only for the construction, but for the mineral conservation. For example, more than 40% of the weight of the tailing from the HPAL maybe is iron. Yeah. And number 2, maybe alumina. And if we can extract the iron from the HPAL tailing, we can reduce the number of tailing, maybe more than 40% of the tailing itself. But maybe the problem is the cost. But we must adjust the cost and incentive and other financial instrument to make this is feasible to extract the iron from the HPAL tailing. And also for the filter or dry tailing, this is a current situation in Indonesia mostly. As Pak Tony mentioned, there are 2 types of edge-pile tailing placement, but mostly they are used the filter tail or dry tailing. Even though in OP Island, I think there are two forms of tailing placement. One is dry stack tailing facility, backfill from the mine out area. And when the situation or the climate extreme, especially extreme rainfall intensity occurred, the tailing, the other, you can use the dam tailing in other site. So I think in Obi Island, they have both. And they, for example, during dry season, they can optimal use the dry stack tailing facility. And during the extreme rainfall intensity, during the wet season, you can use the TSF. So in terms of the number of tailing itself from the edge pile, the situation if dry tailing is 1.3 times higher than amount, 1.3 times higher than the ore itself. And for the slurry tailing, the number is 3 times from the dry tailing. So if we use the slurry tailing, it's mean we need the large space. Of course, space is the big problem in Indonesia. Dam tailing needs larger space and high embankment, and also the issue of the chromium hexavalent. But the dry tailing or filter tailing challenge is during the wet season or extreme rainfall, but maybe we can use combine both. Yeah. During the extreme rainfall, we can use the slurry tailing, and during the normal season or dry season, we can optimizing the placement using the filter or dry tailing. Yeah, this is dry tailing. Yeah, of course, we didn't discharge the tailing to the sea. And also about the dry tailing space and safety concern, because we have we have problems when the file in Brazil 2019. I think there is a dam breaks, and the impacted area is to the sea. I think that's also the safety and environmental concern. And also for the dry tailing, after the placement, if we discipline and we can optimize the slope and the bench, and then we can revegetate or reclamation. So it's easier to manage after the placement itself, because under the Indonesian regulation, after the placement of tailing, we still have obligation to monitor about the water, especially groundwater and also surface water. So dry tailing may be easier to revegetate and reclamation approach. Yeah, you can see here we can grow some seed and plant in the tailing. And also this is the hydrogeological review about dam tailing and dry tailing. This is one of the simulation. If we use the dam tailing with the height of embankment 40 meters, the brown color is the slurry area, slurry tailing area. And if we use dry tailing, it's mean 70% of the volume already put it as the water treatment plant, and with the 30% of solid, with the optimum moisture content around 25% of moisture content in red color or pink color, we can place with the same amount of production. We can make a space better in terms of space. This is one of the other option of the tailing placement is a landfill. As Pa Amsor mentioned about landfill, there are 3 types. Class number 1, class number 2, and class number 3. This is the design. As Pa Tony Gultem, the design itself, we have a final downstream buttress, we have a compartment buttress, we have under drains, finger drain, and vertical drains. And also, of course, the perimeter drains outside the landfill or backfill area. So the important thing for the dry tailing is the drainage control. In the surface drainage, subsurface drainage, and finger drainage, also maybe vertical drainage connecting from the surface to the subsurface drainage. And this is the typical of layering. Yeah, first is the, of course, low permeability zone with the clay and collecting drainage layer, and to catch the leachate and to transmit the leachate to the water treatment plant. Yeah, this is the typical of the design. This is in the right left side is the figure of the nickel placement of backfill dry tailing in Obi Island. The location of the edge pile or processing, it should be very near with the filter press and backfill area to make easier control of the placement of the tailing using conveyor and tracking. You can see this is the compartment buttress, because if we just make one embankment at the downstream, it means we need very large or high amount of quarry. So in Obi Island, we can use the compartment buttress to separate and to divide the load. In geotechnically, we separate in this for buttress. Yeah. And also for the backfill dry tailing, so it means if we can coordinate to put the tailing to mine out area, even though different entity from industrial permit and to mining area, it means we can utilize existing mine areas and no additional green area land clearing for landfill or dam tailing, and reduce impact on other resources, including water management. And also the tailing can be used as growth medium for revegetation. We have a collaboration research with Harita about the utilization or to growth plant from the tailing itself, and maybe can be used as a biomass. Maybe not edible plant, but maybe we must choose the as the plant for the biomass or others, like hyperaccumulator plant. And of course, this is the mineral conservation potential, because if you saw these left figures, this is red color of tailing placement with high iron concentration. Of course, if we want to mine the iron, maybe the concentration of iron is more than 50% or more than 55% of iron, but in tailing just only 40 to 45%. But maybe with the financial instrument, we can make this compete from the natural resources to produce iron, and with the secondary resources to produce iron from the tailing. But we must control the some instrument about the cost and especially for the obligation for financial to the government. So in this case, tailing can be used as a potential alternative new material. Yeah, Pak Tony shows that for the road base and others, but for edge pile, this is clay mineral, very soft, not easy to use as the construction material, not like slag we can use for the construction material. And this is one of the research, yeah, in the left side.
If I may interrupt you, would you mind, seeing that you can come to an end within the coming 2 or 3 minutes, as we are limited in time and we still have 2 speakers? My apologies. It's a very interesting presentation, but we want to stick in the 2 hours time frame. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, this is some opportunity. And of course, scientific collaboration, policy collaboration, and industrial collaboration to control or to manage the tailing, especially in nickel industries, is very important. From the government, Ministry of Environment, Ministry of Energy, Mineral Resources, Ministry of Industries, and also from the academia, from the university, from NGO, and also industrial collaboration from mining company and industrial nickel companies. This is the placement of tailing in Indonesia. This is typical of layering. And this is the turning point. I mean, the critical mineral from the tailing. Yeah, because the tailing nickel edge pile mostly in Indonesia is used filter tail. Yeah, of course, we need the slurry tail for ponding, for temporary ponding in case of extreme rainfall intensity. And nickel as a valuable asset, nickel tailing, I mean, and to evaluate the nickel tailing. This is in conclusion. In recent years, we have continuously progressed in providing in academia, discussion with the industry, with the government for technical tailing management, and also coordination of mining and industrial license to put the tailing to mine out area, even though different entity, and policy support from ministry and other agencies about the tailing placement. And tailing maybe can be potentially used for other benefit. And when well managed, environmental quality standard can be achieved, and contribution of academia, research institute, or industry and government play important role to manage the tailing placement. Yeah, this is some overview of the tailing placement in current situation. Nickel tailing, gold tailing. This is the construction and also placement, spreading, layering, and compacting. You must very disciplined in mining engineering in terms of geotechnic. You must very disciplined with the SOP or procedure of placement, and water leachate collection pond, and water treatment plant. And that's all from me. Thank you, Pak Mark. Sorry. Yeah.
No need to apologize. Many thanks. As it is, it's a fascinating, it's an interesting topic. And if I look into, we have more than 130 participants, which shows how important the topic is, not only for the Indonesian nickel industry, but for stakeholders globally. And I think what we have seen in your presentation is reiterating the points made by the speakers before, how important it is to find solutions. That dry stacking is actually a way forward, but it has to be combined with other approaches, such as, for example, reuse and recycling. And I think the last point that I feel is important is how important it is to have, your research institution collaborating with the companies and the government to find suitable solutions. So thank you very much. Now I would like to hand over to Emma from ICMM, the International Council on Mining and Metals. So I know Emma in her role as director, who's actually dealing at ICMM with a wide range of different topics, including materials stewardship, tailings management, and data portfolio. I'm going to keep this brief. There will be biographies shared with you in the meeting report. And Emma, I would like to hand over to you. You will have to put the slides into the full presentation mode. So we right now can see both the current slide as well as the next slide. So if you go to display settings, and then I think you have to. So you're on mute, so maybe you can unmute yourself. And
my computer has locked up while I've been trying to do that, so I'll stop sharing and start again. But thank you very much for the kind invitation, Mark, and thank you to the previous speakers for the wonderful context and setup. It really is a great privilege to be listening to what's going on in Indonesia in the ground and seeing some of the latest state of the art there, and also learning more about your regulatory context. I'm going to give a little bit of a snapshot on some international level industry guidance and the development process or journey we've been on at ICMM as a membership. I will try and keep mine a little bit shorter to make some time up, because I'd really love there to be time for questions. So jump in, Mark, if I am going on too far. But as Mark said, my name is Emma Gagan. I oversee the data and research portfolio at ICMM, which includes our work on materials stewardship, so pollution policy, as well as tailings management and data. I'll do a bit of a walk through the timeline of our tailings management story for the last 10, 11 years. And then I'd like to drill in on some key documents that might complement some of the work and the thinking that's going on in Indonesia, and perhaps they'll be useful resources for operationalizing good practice guidance in the local context, perhaps. And I'll close out with a bit of a mention about the Global Tailings Management Institute, which is going to be relevant for everyone in the industry going forward. Who is ICMM before I start? We're a CEO-led sustainable development leadership organisation, bringing together about a third of the industry in terms of production. Our 26 member companies are listed on the slide here, and we also have more than 40 associations members, commodity or regional associations. So Nickel Institute is one of those associations members, and Cobalt Institute. They share our commitment to responsibly produce minerals and metals that underpin a safe, just and sustainable world. So that's what brings us together, collaboration to overcome the sustainable development challenges facing the industry. It's not just possible to pay a fee and become a member. Membership requirements are performance related, and our membership commitments are on the website. They can, anyone can access them and see how we would define good environmental, social, and governance expectations for the industry. There's 10 different areas there, everything from circularity to diversity, equity, inclusion, safety, and environment. And implementation is at a site level with regular assurance and validation of conformance. And it's in this way, through the principles, that good practice expectations that we have reached to more than 650 assets in 50 countries where ICMM members are operating. The tailings related commitments that we have actually fall under Principle 6, which is all about environmental performance, and it also includes commitments on closure and water, pollution management, and climate. And the commitment itself is it looks quite simple. It's a single sentence here: from design through to post-closure to manage a tailings facility in a risk-based approach with good governance, with the aim of minimizing the risk of catastrophic failures. But anyone who has tried to operationalize what seems like a very simple sentence will know that there's a lot more that goes into making that context specific and realizing that on the ground. It's not a simple or an easy process. And we exist as an organization to support our members actually deliver on these commitments. So to make that real on the ground, and that is achieved through peer-to-peer sharing between the members in a safe, non-competitive space, through capacity building and training and guidance development. And that's some of what I'd love to share with you today. Our tailings management journey, really, we dug deep in earnest, I'd say starting in 2015, 2016, after terrible tragedy in Brazil, the Fundão tailings dam failure that some of you may remember in Mariana, when 19 people were tragically killed, 43 million cubic meters of iron ore tailings released, and 650 kilometers of pollution in Brazil. At that time, that was the biggest environmental disaster in the world mining industry, and it shook the membership to the core, because this could have happened to anyone, anywhere, in the sense that there wasn't anything particularly striking about this. Of course, the climate is unique, but it's occurring in many different parts of the world, and it was a real shake for the membership to rethink our governance and management of tailings facilities. And it also sparked a lot of international attention. And there was a global expert panel that was convened to look at the governance of tailings facilities, and ICMM members committed to a renewed governance framework that really outlined what some good practice principles on governance and accountability, emergency preparedness, etc., might look like. And that was all after the Mariana tragedy. In parallel, however, our council, so the CEOs of the 26 member companies form our council to set the strategic direction. They recognise that just a governance framework alone is not going to solve the solution long term, and we need to think differently about whether we really want conventionally stored tailings facilities as the legacy of our industry in perpetuity. And they set an ambitious 10 to 15 year goal to look at ways to eliminate tailings storage facilities. And I've heard some of the technologies that are being explored in Indonesia tonight. They're the same kind of things that we have to think about, radical different ways to storing tailings long term, to if we really committed to the notion of no catastrophic failures ever again. And that includes kind of ambitious technologies things that don't exist yet, precision geology or precision mineral separation, some technologies that do exist, waste valorization or in situ leaching, alternatives to the conventional way of mining and slurry and storing tailings in perpetuity. And then in January 2019, many of you may remember the terrible tragedy that occurred when a dam at Córrego do Feijó in Brumadinho, Brazil failed. Sadly, 272 people were killed, many of them mine workers eating their lunch downstream from the dam on the day of the disaster. And there's a link to the video if you want to watch in real time. This was not an operational tailings facility. It was actually being decommissioned at the time of the incident, had no water on the surface. So it wasn't active, it wasn't receiving tailings, it didn't have water. And it tragically failed. 9 million cubic meters of iron ore tailings released at this time. And not only the workers, but also community members in the nearby town inundated. So extensive damage. And if you recall at the time, this understandably sparked international distress and was a catalyst for industry-wide change and action, not just at Vale. This was a Vale site in Brazil, but across the ICMM membership, wider industry, with calls from investors, with calls from the UN for a radical rethink on tailings management. And I speak from having heard the members at the time and talking about this experience, and I think every one of them accepted that this may have happened on a Vale site, but we all have tailings facilities that are exposed to risk, and none of us can afford to think that would never happen to me. So a lot of self-reflection and humility at the time, and the members came together to really, in the spirit of thinking, how do we ever stop something like this again? Not just the members, but the UN and the Principles for Responsible Investment also came together and called for action, and they undertook a global tailings review, a lot of public consultation. I won't go through the backstory of that, but a result of that process was the Global Industry Standard on Tailings Management, which a number of the speakers tonight have already referred to. And it really outlines what good practice tailings management looks like. It is region agnostic, so should be able to be implemented and audited against anywhere in the world for any tailings facility, from design right through to closure. And it covers everything from the economic and environmental context through to disclosure of information and emergency and drill testing, accountability and governance in an organization. It's really quite thorough. And so that's kind of where that was a pivotal moment for the industry in defining our direction and where we go in terms of responsible tailings management. Not just for ICMM members, this is a public standard, and many investors call for it and request it from sites that they or corporations that they're investing in. So it really has been a significant shift. But as I mentioned, similar to what with our performance expectations, it's not simple to just overnight operationalize these 77 requirements. Some of them need to be implemented in sequence. So to be able to do the stakeholder engagement, you need to know the consequence classification, which requires a dam breach analysis and a knowledge base assessment. So, 4 or 5 kind of sequential requirements there. So it's not an overnight process. It's not simple or easy. And we knew it would be a huge lift for not just our members, but for anyone wanting to implement this. But it is incredibly important. We really believe in the goal of 0 fatalities from tailings facilities ever again. So this implementing the standard became a priority for us. Our members committed to implementing the standard fully for all their sites with extreme and very high consequence classification by August 2023, and then for every other facility by August 2025. We worked with the members then to say, how do we support you deliver this? There are conformance protocols, and they're available on our website to help someone understand how to audit and check against the standard. But the document I'd really love to draw your attention to, and you may already be familiar with, is the Tailings Management Good Practice Guide. And this is where the members, the tailings practitioners across the world, in the wake of the disasters that they've seen and the commitment to never having something like that happen again and wanting to implement these 77 requirements rigorously on sites in such diverse contexts, from the Atacama Desert to the tropical rainforest of Brazil to the tundras and Arctic in Canada, we had practitioners coming together to nut out how do we operationalize this standard in our context. And the result of that labor of love was the development of the Good Practice Guide. It's very practical. It covers all the life stages, all the sections of the GISTM in practice, as well as some really great in detail kind of examples. What does this mean if I wanted to do this in practice? So I'm not a tailings engineer. I'm not even an engineer. I'm an environmental scientist by training, and I have found the guidance incredibly helpful in terms of operationalizing what the standard itself looks like in practice on sites. So that's an incredible resource that I wanted to encourage others to draw on if it's helpful, as in how to translate international thinking into the relevant context at each site. All of our guidance is publicly available. It's not just for the members. So that's why I wanted to also share that information as well. We do peer-to-peer sharing, which is behind closed doors, but if it's guidance development, we want it to be there to support the wider industry. 5 years on from our commitment to the GIS team, our members are still not there yet. So we're also still on a journey. I don't know if we have any members on the line, but this was a snapshot of ICMM member tailings facilities at August last year and how many of them had fully met all the requirements of the GISTM. And you can see we've still got a way to go, and it remains a work in progress, and it remains a priority for our members. And this is what we'll continue to focus on in our tailings management activities in the coming years. But in the background, something interesting has been happening. While we've been putting our effort on implementation, the UNEP and the Principles for Responsible Investment have been exploring options for the standard to have an independent governing body overseeing it in the long term, and an assurance framework around it to allow some credibility and consistent auditing by independent auditors. So we had the conformance protocols, and they wanted something that was going to be just an independent stakeholder-led process, and they were working on that development of a body that might oversee the GISTM in the long term. Last year, that body became real, and the Global Tailings Management Institute was launched. I'd love to hear if anyone in Indonesia had heard the announcement or had any outreach from them yet, because they're very keen to connect with people in the different regions to understand how they can support implementation of the GISTM in different operating contexts, work to ensure alignment with the legislations, or to support capacity building locally. And the Global Tailings Management Institute is headquartered in South Africa, but very much has a global reach. It has an independent board with 9 different stakeholder groups represented on it, everything from the industry to the insurance sector to Indigenous communities, so a very robust governance structure around it. And its sole purpose is to ensure that the global industry standard is taken up widely, well beyond the ICMM membership, and we eventually see zero harm from tailings facilities. They will manage the assurance framework around it. So in the coming year, I believe next week, actually, we'll see some really big announcements coming from the GTMI. They have secured a CEO and will soon be announcing a technical committee, and they're starting work on managing an assurance framework so that assessors can accurately and consistently assess conformance with the GISTM. And after that important piece of work, they'll turn their attention to the capacity building, the training, the knowledge sharing, transparency on their website, disclosing outcomes. Their first piece of work is that assurance framework. So that will watch this space. That will be really interesting and really important for the industry going forward. We anticipate that those companies, so a company can become a signatory of the GTMI, that there will be a proposed flat fee based on if you're a small or a large operator. So small being less than 10 tailing storage facilities, large more than 10. So it's not, there shouldn't be financial hurdles to becoming a membership. It's not meant to be an expensive thing, but the intention is that getting a GTMI signature, becoming a GTMI signature, or being able to say that to your insurance providers or to investors and even to impacted communities around should build credibility and improve the social license to operate and support that confidence that all of the stakeholders around us are asking for in the wake of the tragedies that we have seen in the last decades. So that's kind of the context that I wanted to provide for the GTMI, because I think there'll be a call soon, and there'll be opportunities for any company to participate and engage with the GTMI. And if you're not an operator, you can also support the GTMI. I think you can sign up on their website to become a supporter, and that could involve things like hosting roundtables or knowledge shares, things like that, to support industry understanding and rollout of this global industry standard. One last thing before I wrap up, and I hope I've managed to save a bit of time, I don't know. The aspirational goal that we committed to in 2018 hasn't been forgotten. While all this focus has been on the standard, we have still been exploring some of the options for innovative ways to reduce tailings. They're available in the Tailings Reduction Roadmap, which I won't go into in detail. That's also on our website if it's of interest, or perhaps synergies with some of the initiatives we've been hearing about tonight. So in summary, catastrophic failures, those that have material disruption to social, environmental and local systems, cannot continue. We as an industry have an aim of preventing them ever again. And we're doing that by looking to the standards in the GISTM and the good practice guidance to implementing that on the ground. The GTMI is going to have a key role in seeing that happen in the days coming. So watch out for that. In the slides that will be shared, Mark and Cloud will hopefully share these with you if you're interested. There are links to the documents that I've shared, and I hope they could be of use on our shared journey towards elimination of catastrophic failures from tailings. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Emma, for this very nice overview, but also for saving some time to allow us to at least address a few questions that we see right now popping up in the Q&A section of the website. I think ICMM is demonstrating what is required in our industry, that we are open when it comes to such catastrophic events like the tailing dam failures that occurred, and that we address those, that we seek for solutions. So it's clear that this is not an issue that is specific to Indonesia, but it is something that occurs
Definitely
linked,
industry-wide.
Yeah, to the whole metals and mining industry. It's not specific to nickel. It's something that is actually inherent and part of the metals and mining industry. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank
Now,
you.
before going over to the Q&A session, we would like to ask Greta from the Global Battery Alliance to actually share their work that they are doing in the GBA related to mine waste management. It's important to understand that the Global Battery Alliance plays a critical role for the Indonesian nickel industry, especially for those parts who are serving the batteries market or planning to serve the batteries market. So, Greta, the word is yours. And
yes, I hope I'm audible. Perfect. Many thanks, Mark, for having us. And many thanks also for the 5 minutes you've given us. I will try to fulfill the time and to make it very, very short. My name is Greta Gambillar. I work for the Global Battery Alliance. And for those who do not know us, the GBA is the world's largest private-public partnership in the battery ecosystem, covering around 150 organizations and businesses along the battery value chain, from mining to recycling. So we are covering the whole battery value chain. And our mission is to build and scale responsible and circular battery value chains. So when we're talking about the management of tailings in alignment with the global guidance, this is exactly what or where the mine waste management module you can see here in this slide of the battery benchmarks can help with. So I'll give you, given the time, just a very short snapshot of the benchmarks, and let's introduce them to you very shortly. So the battery benchmarks are a strong tool for compliance that establishes a harmonized global framework where none existed before, and provides trusted and comparable data across a fragmented standards landscape. So the battery benchmarks encompass 18 ESG reporting modules aligned with the EU batteries regulations, Annex 10 risks, and allow the companies or those companies who must meet the requirements of the EU batteries regulation in 2027 to implement their due diligence in line with the batteries regulation and use the battery benchmarks as a strong tool for preparing to be compliant with it. So all modules, you can see them. Sorry. All modules have been designed on the back of existing voluntary sustainability standards. We have worked together with a number of these standards to develop this framework and are also preparing to include those who apply to the downstream supply chain. And all modules have been organized according to the OECD six-step framework of the Responsible Business Conduct Guidance to allow a risk-based approach so that facilities and the supply chain should report fully on those risks relevant to their operations to avoid unnecessary reporting burden, which is already a reality for many facilities. Each step is built by distilling the common elements of existing standards and also recognizing where some standards may go further than others in their ambition level, which you can see in this slide with the axis and the respective ambition levels. So this allows for facilities that have assured their management system and their ESG risk performance risk management against one of these standards to be automatically recognized and don't have to add additional reporting burden. So it also allows downstream actors not to use a single standard, but to understand the differences between the standards. And it also allows the fact that in their supply chain, they will have suppliers' facilities using or implementing multiple standards. So I'll go back to the previous slide. So why in this specific case, so in the mine waste management reporting module, what we have done, we have looked at the existing mining standards, the two leading standards in particular, the Global Industry Standard on the Tailings Management and the TSM Tailings Management Protocol. We brought together the common elements and benchmarked these elements, so these similarities and the differences in terms of what are good practices in place. So this module can be helpful for Indonesian mining companies to gain a quick overview of what the global guidance means and what it looks like to be compliant and have best practices in place with the benchmarks as a comprehensive tool. So companies can get this first overview in looking first at the benchmark before reading through the whole standards. And same for the regulators, they can have a look at this as a very high-level summary of good practices in place across the standards. And they, if they are developing, for example, regulations for monitoring or implementation of regulations such as auditing, they can use the battery benchmarks as a valuable resource for putting in place good practices and compliance. I would stop there. I hope I respected the 5 minutes given, Mark.
Yeah, thank you very much, Greta, for these valuable insights into the work done by the Global Battery Alliance, where we have various actors, also downstream and end users of nickel and other battery raw materials. So the entire value chain, governments, civil society sitting around the table. So I think it's a valuable component that stakeholders have to be aware of. Now, I have done a terrible job in keeping actually the timing. So we only have 5 minutes left, which is not enough to have a proper discussion. What I would suggest is maybe I can ask each speaker who wants to maybe tell us what he feels, what he takes, the key message that he takes with him from the webinar today. What we are going to do, I've seen that we have right now roughly 20 questions that came up in the Q&A section. They will be answered separately. So maybe I can start asking Emma, what is the key message that you take with you from this webinar today? Is there something that you feel is a takeaway that you will actually take with you back home?
Yeah, thanks very much, Mark. It has been so good to hear the reflections from this particular context and to just see how committed operators are to innovation and eliminating tailings, but also taking the environmental, social, and governance aspects seriously. So my main takeaway is that, as I had anticipated, this is an industry-wide challenge, and it's fantastic to see that Indonesia is embracing this on the ground and operationalizing that. Please reach out to us where we can help each other. That's all.
Yeah, thank you very much, Emma. I hate to put people on the spot, but Tony, is there anything from your side that you feel is the key takeaway that you take with you from this webinar today?
Well, yeah, Mark, thanks for the arranging and coordinating this a very, very valuable seminars. And then the discussion from speakers, very insightful. So it's good for the FINI to be part of this seminar and see that's improvement is always to be part in the nickel industry business to be better especially for the how to manage the tailings.
Exactly. I think that's a very valid conclusion, Tony, that you have drawn. Professor Iskandar, is there anything from your side? I saw that you were very active in responding to the questions that came up. So is there a key point that you take with you from this webinar today?
Yeah, of course, we have to manage the tailings properly, follow the global standard and also the local situation, like in Indonesia, with the extreme rainfall, with high tectonic activities, and limited space on land. Yeah, so I think the government and the community should be gathered with the academia, how the best way to control the tailing itself, and in the future tailing to transport the tailing become an asset if it possible. That's from me, Mark. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Pak Evan. Now, Pak Amsor, the Ministry of Environment has the last words. Is there anything that you would like to share, a key conclusion that you take with you from this webinar today? Now you put yourself on mute.
Masih mute, Pak. Pak Amsar masih mute.
Okay, thank you. Again in bahasa. Excuse me. Maybe today kita memandang bahwa tailing itu adalah limbah. Untuk saat ini, kita tidak pernah tahu 10-20 tahun mendatang bahwa tailing itu masih menjadi satu sumber daya yang bisa dimanfaatkan. Oleh karena itu, pilihan pengelolaan tailing yang terbaik saat ini mungkin adalah dengan cara penimbunan. Oleh karena itu, riset tentang tailing dan kandungan yang ada di dalamnya perlu terus dikembangkan. Seperti yang saat ini kami sedang mendorong pemanfaatan tailing dari industri bauksit, di mana kandungan besi atau Fe-nya masih sangat tinggi dan ada teknologi-teknologi yang terus dikembangkan. Namun demikian, pengolahan tailing dengan landfill ataupun dengan tailing storage perlu memikirkan kehati-hatian di dalam proses pembangunannya. Pak Irwan, Pak Tony and maybe Mrs. Claudia dan so on memandang hal itu. Ada satu hal yang perlu kita pertimbangkan betul adalah pada saat failure terhadap fasilitas landfill tersebut. Kami sedang memikirkan bagaimana kalau misalkan itu terjadi kecelakaan atau fasilitas dari tailing tersebut rusak gitu ya dan menimbulkan pencemaran. Nah, hal-hal seperti ini bagaimana pemilik dari satu fasilitas landfill tersebut bisa memberikan satu liability yang panjang dan mungkin nanti ke depan bisa kita explore proses-proses untuk liability-nya tersebut. Di Indonesia saat ini kalau misalkan untuk landfill, liability itu masih melekat 30 tahun pasca penutupan landfill, maka penghasil masih harus bertanggung jawab. Namun untuk tailing dam itu 10 tahun dan untuk backfilling itu masih 10 tahun. Mungkin itu yang bisa kami lakukan dari sisi government, kita melihat satu liability tentunya dan tanggung jawab dari pemilik landfill, keselamatan daripada pembangunan landfill itu sendiri, dan masih melihat bahwa tailing itu suatu saat akan tetap menjadi sumber daya dengan memperhatikan perkembangan ilmu pengetahuan dan teknologi. Terima kasih, Mr. Mark. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for this very nice summary that you provided. I would like to conclude this webinar. Some last points from my side. I think what we have seen in this webinar is that the topic is of importance, and the Indonesian nickel industry is looking after the topic. There are other stakeholders like the research sector, such as, for example, the Institute Technology of Bandung, but also the government is looking after the topic. So it's not a topic that is left alone. And I think that we have seen by the work done of ICMM, but also the Global Battery Alliance, that on an international scale, there's actually work ongoing. So it is important to keep actually the exchange between the stakeholders in Indonesia and the industry and other stakeholders globally. So thanks a lot to the speakers. I think that was really very insightful, the presentations that we heard today. Many thanks for making yourself available. As I mentioned, we are going to write a meeting report where all the questions that we got today are going to be addressed. And you will get this meeting report together with the presentations in the coming weeks. So again, to the speakers, many thanks. I would like to conclude this webinar and have a nice day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
See
you
you.
all, everyone.
Yeah,
Pak
thank you,
Irwan,
Pak
Pak
Amsor.
Thank
Tony.
you, Pak
Terima kasih.
Amsor.
Ya,
Pak Tony,
sama-sama.
see you, bye.
Ya, Pak Irwan. Yes, bye-bye. Bu Amelia, makasih.
Ya, makasih Pak Jenlif.
Mark, thank you, Mark.
Yeah, thanks to you.